Greetings, Object Coder. Let's do some preparation for coding dynamic array. The first thing I would suggest that we'd want to do is actually tackle the concepts, so we understand the domain model. Whenever we're coding something, if we don't understand it, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible to code it. So we want to understand the concepts. We don't have to be 100% on our understanding, but pretty good. And then we'll code from there, and we can go back as needed. So do we do that first? Tackle the concepts. And for dynamic array, it's right before the challenge. It's the preceding chapter right before the challenge, the dynamic array logic. So we can go through there and see those concepts. The second thing we'd want to do would be to actually, in the challenge, there's something called provided, a section where provided code, and we want to download that. And that's the project template. In that, we would get the dynamic array, a template of the dynamic array, and that'll actually have all the headers set up for us. And note that that actually compiles without errors. There's no compile error here, no red X in this particular IDE indicating an error, compile errors. We always want to submit, this is just a reminder down the line, we always want to submit and share code with others that runs, but no compile errors. It may not be 100% functionally complete, maybe 50%, but it should compile and run. If code doesn't run, it's not usable. It has no use, and it actually blocks things from happening. Blocks grading, it blocks a bigger system from running if we're a sub part of that system. So we want to have it compile cleanly and then make sure it runs. So the next part of this would be, I would say, to get set up to run some tests, and that's also part of the running of the code. Create an object. I would create an object to create a class such as a song or a song class or employee. I did customer here. Anything you can create a list of those objects, right? Something simple. Here's ID and string and the name, ID and name in this customer, and then a few convenience methods that'll help testing. You can create a list of 1 or 4 or 100 customers to do some initial testing. It's always good to also implement equals within that object. And there's a standard way to do that. You can look at this here, or you can look that up. Standard way to implement equals, and hash code goes along with equals. And then testing, we can actually test before we even start coding here. And I like to do it in parallel. Code some here, code some, and do some test coding. In this case, I've actually started off with some testing even before, and I'll show you why I did that. There's a little helper method, score it. You don't have to do that, but it's a pretty simple thing. Expected value, actual value are the parameters. It sees if they're equal, and then grabs it as a passed variable, and then it creates a label and prints it out, prints out failed or prints out passed. Here's a quick, maybe the simplest test I could think of, because I want to get some confidence here, so I want something simple. We create a new empty array. We would then expect the method isEmpty to be true, of course, right? If it's an empty array, we haven't added anything into it yet. And we would expect size to be 0. So, and then we have 1 would be very similar. We can create a dynamic array with a customer list of size 1, customer array of size 1. We would then expect the size to be 1, and isEmpty should then be false, because it is a size 1, not empty. Let's give that a run. Failed, 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 failed. All of our tests are failing. And by the way, this is just a subset of all the tests we really want to do. We really want to test about every method, every public method we put into our domain model dynamic array. So these are all failing. And that's actually a good feeling to me, because now I have a checkoff list. I expect them to fail because we haven't put any code in yet. It would be very, very odd, and it'd be very suspicious if they all passed. I'd be suspicious of my test. So tests. So they're all failing. Now we have a checkoff list. Now we can start coding off that. So that's kind of the prep, and we'll go from there. We'll see you soon.